Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Life Diversion Ring. That's right, it's the TLDR podcast, and welcome back. I'm Jeff, and this is Daniel.
Hey, hi. How you doing?
What's funny about that?
I'm laughing at me, I'm not laughing at you.
I thought I did something wrong again.
No, I was just like, you were all like being all professional, and I'm just like, hey.
Alright, well, how was your week, Daniel? Let's just push past this.
Oh, I tell you, my week has been something else. Work has got me firing on all cylinders. Games have had to take a little bit of a back seat this week. Also, kind of a little bit of family stuff going on, and just living life. Games are sometimes, like I say, they're second place when it comes to life and family and work and, important things, dare I say. But, I did manage to get in and play maybe a few hours of World of Warcraft retail. Of course, World of Warcraft. I'm in that game in a big way. I know we talked about it last time, and we talked about pathfinding, the achievement for being able to fly in Warlord.
Yes.
Warlords. Yeah.
You don't have that yet?
I don't have it yet. No, you goof. You were making fun of me last time too, or how much I had left to do. However, happy to report
You haven't got the Warlords one yet?
Oh gosh, no! I got that one 3 years ago.
Oh, okay.
No, Battle for Azeroth. I know. I was making fun of myself earlier. No, but I did manage to score the whatever the Nazjatar rep is. What's it called?
Nazjatar and Cohen something.
No. Yeah, the Ankoan Brotherhood or something.
Waveblades or
there you go.
Vengeance.
So I did get up to Revered with them, and literally as soon as I hit Revered, I dropped every other quest that I had picked up for them and jumped out of there like it was on fire, just so I could head over to Mechagon, which I had been doing I'd been doing both of them simultaneously, but I was just way further ahead on the Ankoan Waveblade than I was on the Rustbolt Resistance. So now I'm kind of halfway through Revered, maybe 4 or 5 days. I expect by next week, next time we report in, I'll be flying in Battle for Azeroth. So kind of looking forward to that. Another thing, really, really weird. Okay, so I was going back over kind of our conversation from last week about Diablo, and you kind of tried to pry out of me the problem that I had with Diablo, and I realized that I have played, I can't remember any of the titles offhand, but I have played other games that have that same kind of isometric camera angle and just had an absolute blast playing them. However, I realized I played on a controller. And I know we talked about this before, but I'm actually making strides this week. I was going to ask you if you knew if it was as simple as just plugging in your wireless receiver, plugging it into a computer, and then being able to play with an Xbox controller. Because I don't have a controller specifically for my PC, but I'm curious if my Xbox controller will play if I just plug it in. The receiver, anyways.
I'm not super familiar with the Xbox 360 controllers, if that's what you have. Xbox One, definitely. It's just a USB cord, so it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have.
Yeah, mine are wireless,
Well, mine are wireless. Like if I plugged in the Xbox One, my controller would be wireless. But to charge the controller, it has this like 10-foot long cable. So, but the cable is just USB, so it's fine.
And it just plug and play, and maybe the computer has to download drivers the first time, but pretty much it's just a couple minutes and you're playing.
Yeah, exactly, because it's Xbox and Windows are both Microsoft, so it's easy.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give it a real solid effort this week. I'm gonna try and log into the Diablo 3 that I had downloaded. See if I can't play the Barbarian that I kind of started, because that's my deal. I love the hack slash kind of back and forth, just mindlessly face rolling millions of of bad guys.
I'm not sure if
I absolutely love that.
I'm not sure if you could do the controller for the PC.
No?
Because the PC, there's certain controls that exist for the Xbox or the console variant that don't exist for the PC. Like for the consoles, you can dodge, for example. That button doesn't exist for the PC, so it might not translate for the controller. I'm not sure. Never tried it.
That'd be too bad. That would be too bad. Maybe there's mods or something. Can you mod that game?
No.
No.
They used to mod Diablo 2, and then Blizzard was like, "Wait a second, don't do that," and then started banning everyone. So.
Because I listened to the Blizzard Watch podcast this week, and they were. I'm a little bit behind on listening to them, and they kind of just had their BlizzCon kind of welcome back, because they had sent one of their guys out to BlizzCon, and he's a super big Diablo nerd, and they had their big welcome back for him, and they talked pretty much the entire hour and a half on Diablo 4, and it got me super psyched to play it. But I'm a lore nerd. I love the story. If there's no story, there's no game. That's my opinion, anyways. So I mean, sorry if you can hear that. My dishwasher's kind of doing its own little grunting and groaning right now. Yeah, and so he was waxing poetically about the Diablo 4 reveal and all the things coming, and he was super hyped and got me all super hyped, and so I wanted to kind of have a little bit of a background before I gave Diablo 4 a shot. Let's see if I can't actually get into this franchise a little bit. And I have also been watching Full Metal Alchemist. You'll be very happy to learn. So you're having an effect on me, Jeff. You're rubbing off on me.
I always rub off on people. And usually it's involuntary.
That sounds dirty.
Are you done? Just get it all out now, man.
All right, let's go ahead.
At least I don't jizz off on people.
Oh, we're going to have to put the explicit tag on this episode. Whew.
Why? Jizz is a genre of music in Star Wars.
What? It is?
Yeah.
You're making that up.
Look it up. Jizz, George Lucas.
I don't think I want to. That sounds like it.
Do it in reverse then. George Lucas jizz.
Can we move on?
I'm serious. It's a thing. I'll look it up. Jizz. There. It's on the Star Wars Wikipedia. Okay. I'm not insane. So that's what you did this week?
That is pretty much what I managed to do this week.
What did you think of Full Metal Alchemist?
Yeah, it's kind of the same tropes that have kind of pushed me away from those types of anime before. They're all kind of still there. I had assumed that it was originally it was originally recorded in Japanese. The script was all written in Japanese, and then it kind of just got translated. So I was willing to forgive some things, and then you told me that it wasn't. So
no.
No?
It's Japanese. It was made by a Japanese lady, but the setting is in an English environment.
Oh, okay. So that kind of makes everything. Yeah. So for example, the one brother constantly refers to his brother as just brother, and it happens so frequently to be irritating. Like, he never uses his brother's name.
Which one?
Edward? No.
Edward's the main guy.
The one that's really short that everyone makes reference to as being very small. Yeah, him. So it's Al, the younger brother in the big Titan male body thing, in the bodysuit. He's the annoying one.
Oh.
And he's not even that annoying. It's just his constant reference to brother. What are you doing, brother? Can you come play with me, brother? Brother, should we do this thing? And it's like, okay, just call him by his name, or just, there's just the two of you there. He knows that as soon as you start talking, you're talking to him. You know what I mean? It's like I say, it's probably a gripe that just has to do with the social disparity between our English language and Japanese, and how it just doesn't translate well. But so I'm willing to forgive it. I just find it a little bit annoying. And then, of course, the constantly flying off the handle, extremely emotional bipolarity in their constitutions, shall we say?
Yeah, that's just an anime thing. So viewers at home don't know this, but Daniel started the series on the original anime. And it wasn't until like halfway through the week that I told him, oh, there's also Brotherhood, which is the complete version. I'll say the original is half canon, half filler nonsense, because they caught up and got ahead of the manga, while Brotherhood is the entire manga. There's no filler at all. So Daniel, did you end up switching or not?
No, I decided to continue on with what I've got. If I ever get to a point where I find it too off-putting, I'll switch and I'll give the other one a try. But for now, so it's kind of, I'm not going to call it background noise, but it's not like I don't devote 100% attention to it. I listen to it and watch it while I play other video games. So if I find anything kind of too disturbing, I can just distract myself with the game instead. Not disturbing as in this is creepy or weird, just disturbing as in it bothers me.
I see.
Yeah, so I'm still getting a good shot at the story, and which, like I said, for me is everything, because this anime is not particularly incredible for its animations. So,
well, that's what I was going to say. Is Brotherhood is 10 years later. It's just much better animated. That's all.
Yeah, sure.
It's more colorful. It's in HD, that kind of thing.
Okay.
What episode did you get to?
I think I watched episode 8 this morning, 8 or 9.
Oh, so you didn't make much progress from our halfway point text.
No, I had actually, I was, like I said earlier, I was listening, well, I didn't say this implicitly, but I also try and listen to some podcasts and stuff like that. And I got into, what the heck is the Najatar raid? The Eternal Palace?
Right.
Azara's Eternal Palace. I got into there yesterday morning and managed to knock out Azara and whatever that weirdo before her is, just for the experience and stuff. I had a quest to get in there and kill her, so I did it on LFR, and it actually, believe it or not, it wasn't a painful experience. We managed to down the boss, Azara at least. We downed her on the second try, and the boss before her we wiped 3 times and downed it on the 4th. So it wasn't awful. It wasn't an awful experience, and it's still current enough that people aren't like on mindless farm.
Right.
Yeah. So it was fun.
All right. Yeah. Well, in my experience this week, I also played retail. I got, like I said last time, it only took me another day to get flying. So as soon as I unlocked flying, I was like, oh, now where do I want to go? I have achieved it. But I did end up I started to like more heavily farm the artifact power for my necklace.
Yeah.
My necklace is at level 64 now? 63 or 64.
You're not that far ahead of me. I think I'm at 63.
Well, it's at the point where it's like 10,000, 15,000 to level up now. And the only reason I'm only that far is because I switched mains halfway through the expansion. So I started with my druid, went really hardcore. Like my druid's level 56 with his necklace, and I haven't played him for about 8 months.
Oh yeah, wow.
He could have been so much further now. But yeah, I think they're going to I believe they're going to introduce an upper limit for the no. The patch 8.3 is introducing a whole bunch of things, so they're going to be introducing a skill maximum of level 85, I think, for the necklace. But then the necklace will be able to infinitely level after that to provide resistance to corruption gear, which is a new thing I'm not super familiar with. But
that's coming in the next expansion.
No, patch 8.3.
Oh no, 8. That's right. Okay, so corruption gear is
that's an Azoth
it has debuffs on it. Like the gear itself is super powerful, but it has a debuff, so you can. There's a limit to how much, kind of a soft cap to how much you can carry. I don't know if there is a hard cap for how many.
There, like one of the negatives is it'll drop a pool on the ground that hurts you.
Right.
Which in a raid situation is horrible to have because, of course, positioning is everything. So they're going to. I'm not sure if they're going to tweak that or not, but there are certainly some negatives that are not worth having at the moment. But
if it would just, excuse me, real quick, if it just hurt you as the player instead of your allies, then myself as a demon hunter, I could see myself finding that quite useful because I'm never standing still, and to dodge it to avoid a little puddle would be pretty simple.
Sure, but at least I've never raided Mythic. I have rated Heroic, and there are some fights where even the mobile classes have to sit still, and it just wouldn't work. So just based off of that experience, I don't know, but anyway, so the necklace is going to be able to level up infinitely, and each time it levels up after 85, it will provide some sort of incremental resistance to the corruption gear, so that it takes more corruption to reach that quote unquote hard cap, whatever it may be. So anyway, so I played some retail. I didn't touch classic at all, and I'm actually. It's not that I'm not interested in playing classic. It's my interest in retail is just so much so that I'm totally okay with not touching classic.
I'm kind of in the same place too.
And we had a failed, quote unquote failed episode last week where we were going to cover Rockstar, but turns out Rockstar is kind of boring. But in wake of doing some sort of studying for Rockstar, I also played Grand Theft Auto 2, which I remember playing that game on computers, like the school computers when I was a little kid. Like I'm saying, right. I'm thinking like grade 7 to 9 in that range, and I remember it being so fluid and so cool and smooth, and the controls were easy to understand. All you'd have to do is hop in a car and drive around, and while you were driving around, you'd run people over, and when you ran people over, if they dropped money or guns, you would have to get out of the car and pick it up, but once you had the gun, you could drive around and just fire away, and the bullets would just shoot out straight in front of your car. So if they're like cops or something, you could easily deal with them. But my adult experience with this game, I probably put about 3 hours into it, and I was like, this is garbage. Like the controls are so bad. The resolution sucks. You have to play it on a super small screen to get any kind of appreciation for its graphics. Right. It's just I was like, man, I just ruined my childhood experience by playing this game again. It's not
it's like don't meet your idols. Right?
Exactly.
Then
it's not
don't go back and play the games.
When we did, I forget what episode we did. It might have been another failed episode, but at some point I played the Donkey Kong game, the original Donkey Kong game.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
That was a platformers episode.
Oh, was it? Was that a failed episode?
I don't think so. We've had a few.
Yeah,
but I don't think that was one of them.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Oh no, it is a failed one. I just went into my folder. Okay. Fun times. Yeah, we were going to do a platformers episode. Never worked.
Maybe for Christmas or something, we'll let our viewers listen to our senseless mumbling or something.
Well, the platformer one didn't work because we started talking about movies, and Daniel went on for an hour and a half about Marvel, and so I was like, I don't want to do this episode. So, I when I played Donkey Kong in preparation for the failed episode, I was like, this is awesome. it doesn't matter. It's been 2 decades since I played, and it's still awesome. Like it's basic and rudimentary and blah 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 blah, but it's very entertaining in its own right. Which I did not get that at all from GTA 2. And I really didn't have that much urge to play anything else this week. I was gonna. I've got downloaded the PC simulator, the PC building simulator game. But I've still yet to even turn it on for the first time. I've had it for about a month. It's a game I've always wanted to play. Ever since it came out, I was like, oh man, I should really play this game. I should really play it because it's good for learning computer parts and keeping up to date with what's going on in that department, which parts work with other parts, etc. Because my computer is getting to the point where I might have to replace it in a year or two, and I would really like to be able to build my own PC all over again. So that's what I'm really working towards right now, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I watched the first 2 episodes of Full Metal Alchemist because I haven't seen the original series since I was about 15 or 16 years old. And it, as far as I remember, it's basically the same. It's one really big difference between the original and Brotherhood is, like, in the original there's a lot of scenes of like of course just the 2 episodes I watched, like there's scenes of Ed and Al as kids talking to their mom, and it would the camera pans, like, shows the mom, and the mom talks, and the only thing moving in the frame is her mouth. Like, everything else is just static, frozen stuff or drawing. And then it flashes back to Ed and Al, who are looking up at her, and the only thing that's moving on the screen is their mouths. Like, there's no animation at all other than their mouths. And it's just boring for me to watch. I guess I've gotten used to watching newer stuff, but it's just weird. For some reason, I can forgive it in something like Dragon Ball Z, which is, of course, even older, much, much older than Full Metal Alchemist is. But Brotherhood is just far and away, just as far as art and stuff is concerned, and animation, everything. It's really good. I haven't gone to it, but I was trying to keep up to it with you, and I guess I still can. But
it would be a real shame if I just used it as kind of background noise for my video games.
No, I wouldn't say that. It's just more. It's more gripping because, like, the very first episode of Brotherhood does not start like the first episode of the original series. Like, the original series focuses entirely on, like, their failed experiment to bring back their mom, and, like, that whole desert town thing.
Yeah.
And the first nothing.
No, go ahead.
The first episode of Brotherhood, they're in the capital city, and there's this guy who's, like, using alchemy to create ice everywhere, and he's like a one-man terrorist crew who's trying to destroy the city. And that's how you get introduced to Ed and Al, because they're working together with the other state alchemists to thwart this guy. And it's super action-packed, and it's riveting to watch. And it's just, the second, like, that scene happens, that whole sequence happens before the opening music, and so you get gripped immediately, and then the opening music is perhaps my favorite opening music of anything ever from Brotherhood. It's really, really well done, and the animation in the opening is just stellar stuff. So it's just going from that to the original is definitely a little bit jarring, let's say.
Yeah, because the original one, I can hear it playing in my head right now, and it's not particularly endearing.
It's not horrible, but it's not gripping either. So before we get into the main topic, I do have some news segments. Daniel, did you find anything?
I didn't have time to, unfortunately. But before you go there, I would just want to quickly throw out there that I did make a new character because I got my my Drustvar, not Drustvar. What the heck is that? The Kultirans. I got the Kultiran rep high enough, and I did the unlock for that. Yes. That allied race, and I made a druid, a male druid, and I made it with the intent to just kind of log in for the first time and start generating rest XP, and and then quickly log out. But while I got in there, I was like, I better look at all of my transmog, or not transmog, my shape-shifting transformations. Oh, look at that really cool cat werebear kind of model, and then look at that really cool travel form, and then look at that really cool the cat form, and everything was just really neat. And I just I found myself playing it over and over and over. Got into a few dungeons, healed them, because that was my intent, is to make it a druid healer. And I'm just find myself wanting to not pick up my main and just play the heck out of that one, even though I intended to leave it until the leveling experience changes. But then I kind of realized that that's not until like almost a year from now. Yeah. We're talking summer of 2020, which, if Blizzard is, follows their traditional kind of release timing, we're talking probably mid to late September of next year. So I'll be waiting quite some time. So I decided to just play it a little bit anyways, just to enjoy it.
Now that you've diverted, I'm going to divert too.
Yes!
Because one thing I will say is, because I played Classic for like a month and a half just straight, when I switched back to retail and got flying, there are certain parts of the world that look stunning in World of Warcraft. And I've always taken World of Warcraft graphics for granted, because I've had a computer that's able to render far higher fidelity games. But when you go from Classic WoW to flying into Nazmir with these super duper tall trees over a marsh, it looks awesome. So I was just like, I was drawn into the world all over again, as if it was brand new to me, because everything had just much better textures and resolution and everything. So it was really great.
Yeah, you got to give those developers some props with what they keep doing with the same old engine. They're doing good stuff, good work.
So yeah, let's go on to news. There's not much news that I have, but there are some really neat things going on in the world of gaming. Of course, Pokemon Sword and Shield released for Nintendo Switch on November 15th, which makes it completely dominate all news sites. You go to a news site to look for news, and it's all Pokemon stuff. And it's mostly just guides and stuff, and how do you do this, that, and the other thing. Of course, Sword and Shield introduced several new features, such as Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing, which are functions that increase the size and change the forms of certain Pokemon. There's the Wild Area, which is a large open world with free camera movement. There are raids with cooperative play, along with the addition of 81 new Pokemon and 13 regional variants of pre-existing Pokemon. Now, none of this information I'm super interested in, but it is a gigantic release this week, and I feel like we can't ignore it. In other news, Daniel, have you heard about the Sonic the Hedgehog game, or a movie?
I have heard about it, yeah.
Okay, so
I haven't heard great things about it, but I've heard about it.
Right, because they released this trailer a while ago. I can't remember how long ago it was, but it was like some horrible alien monster that very vaguely looked like Sonic, and it destroyed everyone's childhoods. And so they did that poll thing where, what's that called? The Alberta Separatists did that poll. What's that called?
The Wexit?
What's that poll called, though? That website?
Oh, I don't know.
Anyway, they got a whole bunch of signatures, like vehemently protesting this horrifying like abomination on gaming. And so they finally revamped the Sonic the Hedgehog CGI, and he actually the difference between the new Sonic and the old Sonics of the CGI thing is insanity. Like, he looks like the cartoon Sonic made 3D. Like, he looks awesome. He has the really heavy, like, pronounced brows to, like, because he has this really whiny, like impatient stance when you're playing the game and you like make him stop moving. He like looks at the camera and he's like, "Dude, what the heck?" With these heavy brows on the new Sonic, he can convey emotion way better. It's miles better than the previous. The previous one had white hands. He didn't have gloves like most cartoon characters do. He had white hands. Like his fur went from blue to white, and it looked so bad because his hands were like normal sized. But of course, the cartoon Sonic had gloves on, which made his hands look super big. Same with his feet, were super big, and so they true to form made Sonic look awesome.
I'm looking at it right now, and I can attest to this. The old one looks. Well, I mean, the thing is, they didn't stay true to form. The artist didn't stay true to form to the original Sonic, right? The proportions are wrong, and the eyes are wrong, and even because Sonic is a hedgehog, right? He's supposed to have sharp points, and his points aren't even sharp.
Right.
You know, they're kind of round and fluffy, and it's
his
like
quills, yeah.
His quills.
Same with like
a lot more like fur and a lot less like quills.
Old Sonic had teeth, and new Sonic still has teeth, but they're so much less pronounced that he doesn't look like a monster when he opens his mouth. Because you don't want to see teeth when a beloved cartoon character opens their mouth. You just want to see like a black hole with a tongue kind of thing, like a cartoon would have.
Right.
But yeah, it's just the colors are more realistic. Like the original Sonic had turquoise eyes, which isn't a natural like eye color. And even that is enough to like draw your focus away from this weird like humanoid hedgehog being in the real world.
You know what it actually looks like? You know what he actually looks like a you know when you go to Disneyland, you have those guys that dress up as your Disney characters. What do they call those?
Like a mascot?
Is that the thing? Is that the word? But that's what he looks like. He looks like a human being inside of a suit. Right.
It does, yeah. So it's just it looks so much better. And I'm not in love with Sonic. It's I enjoyed it growing up, but he's such a pivotal well-known character that it would have been horrible if they hadn't changed it.
Well, let's be honest. It would have been just one more movie in the long list of video game movies that flopped.
Yeah, well, you can always hold on to hope.
That's true.
So the big news, this is the only real news that I have. Popular YouTube channel, The Game Theorists, announced that they would be doing an all-day live stream on December 3rd, which is otherwise known as Giving Tuesday, which is self-explanatory, but I've never heard of that before. Have you ever heard of Giving Tuesday?
I've never heard of Giving Tuesday.
Okay, that might be an American thing. I have no idea. But so they reached out to several other very large YouTube channels such as The Try Guys, Vsauce, Markiplier, and many more for what would be the biggest collaboration event to ever grace YouTube. Donations are going to be directed towards the St. Jude Children's Hospital, and through these efforts will help ensure that families never receive a bill. St. Jude's Children's Hospital doesn't charge its patients. Not a single penny. So it's literally hundreds of thousands of dollars just paid for by the hospital. I've never heard of this hospital before. That's amazing. So terminally ill children can get treatment for free. That's insane to me. That's like the most good like type of human being you could think of. Like, that's insane to me.
Well, don't others do this same 24-hour stream? What the heck is it called? But I've heard of this before.
Oh, this happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's just their focus of donations is what really shocks me, because I've never heard of this hospital before, and they're just awesome. Like, they pay the hospital itself pays for treatment, travel, housing, and food for the families. Mm-hmm. Like, it's insanity. Because their slogan is, because all a family should worry about is helping their child live, which is just like, tug at the heartstrings, will ya? So this is
Extra
all well
life.
Exactly. This is all well and good, but what makes any of this game related? Well, MatPat, who is the host of the Game Theorists, reached out to Scott Cawthon, which is, of course, the creator of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, and asked if he would be either willing to donate or feature some sort of premiere trailer or something on the stream to, like, help garner views. And Scott insisted that he would do one better. Instead of donating outright, he said he'd design a FNAF game specifically for the event, the live stream, and that unlocking each of the game's secrets would unlock a donation amount by Scott Cawthon. Oh. This is the kind of thing I want to hear from game developers. He's not just making a hefty donation. He's making it all super fun and interactive. And I'm sure if they don't find all the secrets, he's going to donate it all anyway, because this is a tremendous cause. Mm-hmm. And not to mention, like, I mentioned Markiplier, the Try Guys, etc., but the combined subscriber count of all the people collaborating for this is over 100 million people. Like, it's a lot of people are going to be in on this stream.
Oh, man. And that's just subscribers. What about the rest of us, that kind of just bounce in and out of the stream as it's going?
Exactly. It's just remember, December 3rd, for those of you out there who are interested, it's phenomenal work that they're, like, drawing focus to this. I think last year they raised $200,000 for... This was just the Game Theorists by themselves. They raised $200,000 for fighting, like, mental conditions.
Right.
So this year, it's conditions that can kill, basically, in combination with a lot of other people. Like, there's like a dozen or so people who are going to be joining in on this stream, and it's from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. I think on December 3rd. So, I mean, I'll be at work. I'll miss all of it, but it's still... I'm definitely going to watch the VOD afterward, because... especially considering Scott Cawthon's game that he's creating, it's really exciting.
For sure.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope as many people as humanly possible tune in and donate, because even donating $1, $5, etc., it makes a difference. So, yeah.
And whose channel is hosting this again?
The Game Theorists.
The Game Theorists. And do you know if this is one of the Extra Life days, or is it? Is it its own separate organization?
I don't know.
Because the Extra Life they do, they benefit the Children's Miracle Network hospitals. So that I don't know if the St. Jude Hospital belongs to that network or not.
Yeah, I have absolutely no idea.
Okay.
But the St. Jude Hospital they don't just treat children, like sick children, but they also do research themselves into curing these diseases.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
that's really cool.
It is very, very cool. So I think it's time to move on to the main attraction.
The main event of the evening.
I should clip that. Bungie Incorporated. It's easily best known for its Halo franchise and later its development of Destiny, but this American developers had its hands in more than just two great games. Founded in 1991 by Alex Seropian, the company grew its roots in Chicago, Illinois. Of its founder, Alex Seropian, who developed first a Pong clone called Nop, which is just Pong backwards. It's really stupid. For the Mac, before moving on to form Bungie and adopt a staff of his own. Ever interested in the origins of company names, I did do some rudimentary research into this as well. However, there are only two vague explanations for why we don't know Bungie's name origin. The first explanation is that the developers have either forgotten or have decided to withhold the information. The second is that the company name is actually the punchline of a dirty joke. And I'm not kidding.
I'd love to hear that joke.
Yeah, no kidding. When asked in an interview, Jason Jones, Bungie's first official employee and often credited co-founder, stated that he couldn't tell how Bungie got their name. I took this as he either can't for some silly reason or he cannot recall. So that's all the information I have. The game developer officially came into being in May 1991 so that Seropian could publish Operation Desert Storm himself, Bungie's first officially developed game. Desert Storm, like nearly all games from the 80s and early 90s, was a top-down point of view where you drove a tank around and defeated enemies. Obviously, by its title, the game was based on Operation Desert Storm, which was, of course, a desert or a conflict occurring in the Middle East at the time, and of course had Saddam Hussein's head as the final boss of the game.
Seriously.
NOP had been developed before the company's formation, and so it's sometimes recognized as the first game, but if we went by the numbers, Desert Storm would win out. Seropian built the game boxes and wrote every single disc himself, and was entirely funded by friends and family. The game sold 2,500 copies. This seems like an insignificant number when we consider the many millions of any hit game these days, but when you're getting funding from family and friends and building all the physical copies yourself, I can only imagine 2,500 sold copies being akin to basically winning the lottery. This allowed him to hire Jason Jones, a programmer he had met in an AI course at the University of Chicago. Jones already had a storied past and was currently attempting to port one of his games called Minotaur from the Apple II to the new, at the time, Apple Mac. Partnering together, they released Jones's RPG under the title Minotaur: The Labyrinths of Crete? I don't know that word. Crete?
That's a city in Greece. Crete.
Well, sorry. So this was in 1992 that this game came out. Minotaur was a classic dungeon crawler of its time that incorporated online multiplayer as its primary focus. Though there was a single-player option, that mode had no end and was primarily used to learn how various items worked. This game relied on an internet connection to play, which in the early 90s was exceptionally uncommon. The game, however, sold also 2,500 copies, and it established for Bungie a devoted following. Intending on a sequel to their Minotaur game, they attempted to cross the barrier from 2D games to 3D with a Wolfenstein-esque first-person shooter. The Minotaur title fell away as they realized the game's perspective did not translate well into a 3D environment. So they instead went with a new storyline to eventually develop Pathways into Darkness in 1993. Pathways was very much like Wolfenstein, where you walked around with an unmoving gun in the center bottom of your screen and shot with screen-wide accuracy at the various monsters in front of you. Where Wolfenstein and Doom were full-screen action shooters, Pathways into Darkness featured side menus to display information such as health, power, points, weapon proficiencies, and a window describing what your character was seeing. They brought in a temporary employee for this venture, Colin Brent, who created the game's art. As a first for Bungie, the game went on to be a critical and commercial success, winning many awards. From this point, Bungie was able to move out of Seropian's apartment and into an actual studio, a converted former religious girls' school located in front of a crack house.
Oh my god! I wonder if it was a crack house before the girls' school or after.
Who knows? Hopefully after.
Hopefully after, indeed.
They hired on their first full-time employee, Doug Zartman, who joined in 1994 to become their PR manager. Like with Minotaur, they tried another sequel, this time to Pathways into Darkness. But again, through the development process, the new game became a first-person shooter called Marathon. Marathon was a much more colorful game than Pathways into Darkness, and was much more reminiscent of Doom, featuring multiple layers in its levels. It allowed rocket jumping to traverse these layers, a function known at the time as grenade hopping, a term that went on to be used in Bungie's future games. Different from its predecessor as well as the commercial hits Doom and Wolfenstein, Marathon allowed the player to look up and down and side to side with the mouse. And this was the first game ever to feature this ability, using the mouse to look around. I think that's amazing. I didn't realize that at all.
And what year was that in?
1994.
Huh.
Yeah.
I guess. I'm sitting here thinking, well, 94 wasn't that long ago, but it was stinking 25 years ago.
You were 6.
Hey?
You were 6.
I was 6. Okay, that's quite some time ago. Good for them.
Additionally, Bungie learned from Pathways into Darkness and introduced an intricate story to supplement its single-player experience. Marathon and Halo would see similarities as both are first-person shooters and set in the future. Where Pathways into Darkness saw what young Bungie thought as modest success in the 2,500 copies sold, Marathon would go on to sell more than 150,000 copies before its sequel just a year later. So in under a year, it sold 150,000 copies.
Oh.
Considering its first success, Bungie would finally go on to successfully develop a sequel for Marathon, Marathon 2 Durandal, in 1995. The sequel followed its predecessor in many ways, including the addition of a cooperative mode, and managed to outsell the first game. Attempting to expand their audience, Bungie at this time announced their intentions to port Marathon 2 over to Windows 95, because they had been Mac exclusive, or Apple exclusive, I guess. This resulted in a flood of negative mail from Mac players that felt betrayed, of course. Despite the massive redoubt the company experienced following their announcement, they went ahead and released the game in September the following year for Windows anyway. I mean, despite the doubtlessly good choice of expanding their market, Seropian would go on to languish in the terrible contracts that non-Apple distributors would demand. In 1996, Marathon Infinity would release, the final in the set, and introduced a far larger levels that explored a plot so intricate that it spanned both space and time. The Marathon trilogy would eventually have its source code released publicly by Bungie, allowing others to port it to different platforms or use its engine to develop other games. Finally, in 1997, Bungie released Myth, The Fallen Lords, as an attempt to get away from the first-person shooter genre and get into the strategy genre. This game focused on unit management over resource management that other games such as StarCraft, Warcraft, Command & Conquer, Age of Empires were all employing. The game saw enough success to spawn a sequel in 1998, while Myth's success allowed Bungie to create a branch, Bungie West, in San Jose, California. This expansion would draw the attention of some of the industry's behemoth companies. Take-Two Interactive would later buy out Bungie West, gaining the rights to the Myth series and Oni, the sole game produced by Bungie West. Oni was released in 2001 as a third-person action game that focused on gunplay. The game was heavily inspired by Ghost in the Shell and Akira, which are anime, and is set in a cyberpunk world, which is, of course, my favorite setting. The game was criticized as being rushed, lacking in environmental detail, plot development. The AI was really stupid, apparently, so it was just not great. It is here that Bungie experienced a very brief respite before going on to announce Halo Combat Evolved, which was originally intended as a third-person shooter for both Windows and Mac. It's funny, too, that Halo's first public unveiling occurred at the Macworld Expo in 1999, introduced by Steve Jobs himself, but would go on to be a Microsoft-only title.
Yeah, my apologies. I wondered if that was Steve Jobs, but I didn't really recognize him with, all the color in his hair.
and the 3 pixels to describe him. It was a bad video.
It was a bad video.
But anyway,
cutting edge at the time.
Yeah. But yeah, I always think that must have been a set. Like looking at the world as now, that must have been such a kick in the teeth for Apple. It was in June 2000 that Microsoft announced it would acquire Bungie, which meant that Halo would be developed instead as an exclusive FPS for the Xbox console. Jason Jones said that he couldn't recall precisely why they accepted Microsoft's offer. He pointed out that Activision made a very real offer, a very lucrative offer, but the chance to work on a new generation console for a company that took games seriously was just too good to pass up. And as a gesture of goodwill, Seropian and Jones, the two co-founders, refused to accept Microsoft's offer until their entire studio agreed to the buyout. I think that's actually a really, companies don't do that anymore, right? Get the universal consensus. Really cool.
Yeah. That shows some quality, some good integrity anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. Halo would go on to sell 6.5 million copies in 2001, becoming Xbox's juggernaut franchise and bulldozing all other competition at the time. Its graphics were revolutionary, its story unique, and its tremendous success would eventually see Halo 2 making more than $125 million on its release day. Halo 3 smashed records yet again with $170 million on its first day. The original...
That's incredible.
Yeah, I know. The original Halo trilogy would cement Bungie's hand in the gaming world for all of history as we know it. Seropian would leave the company in 2002, citing frustrations with the game development process and the importance of spending more time with his family. Harold Ryan took his place. I looked up Harold Ryan. He doesn't seem to have any importance at all other than being the president at the time. Following Halo in 2001, all of Bungie's efforts would focus entirely on the franchise, and the studio went on to develop not just the original trilogy, but Halo 3 ODST, or Orbital Drop Shock Troopers, in 2009, that took place during and after the events of Halo 2. Halo Reach in 2010 also came out of the franchise as a prequel to the first game to chronicle the events of the first Halo novel, The Fall of Reach, wherein the player controls Noble 6 in a special operations unit composed entirely of Spartan-class super soldiers like Master Chief. Unfortunately, this would be all we would see of Halo from Bungie when in 2007 they announced they would be splitting from their parent company to become private once again as Bungie LLC. Halo would see further games developed by 343 Industries, a division of Microsoft, but its life with Bungie had come to an official close, since Microsoft technically owned Halo now. So, in 2010, Bungie announced that they were entering a 10-year publishing agreement with Activision Blizzard, whom we've of course heard plenty of before. Mm-hmm. And unlike with Microsoft and Halo, the agreement between Bungie and Activision Blizzard allowed Bungie to retain complete ownership of any games they developed. In February 2013, after playing their cards extremely close to the chest, rattled by Microsoft's handling of their studio, Bungie would announce their first major title since Halo, Destiny, for PlayStation and Xbox consoles that released in 2014. Harold Ryan would step down from Bungie in 2016 for Pete Parsons to take his place. Again, Pete Parsons looked him up, couldn't find any huge information on him. In January 2019, Bungie terminated its publishing deal with Activision after 8 years and retained total ownership of Destiny as planned. This resulted in the removal of Destiny from Blizzard's Battle.net launcher and its addition to Steam instead. Despite overwhelming negative comments regarding their split from Activision, Bungie's communications director, David Daigle, I believe, denied that Activision was a prohibitive overlord that limited Bungie in any kind of creative way. He said the split was simply regarding different ideas about Destiny's future. In an interview
interesting that you bring... let me interrupt you right there. It's interesting that you bring that up because those of us, who are Blizzard fans, we've tended to look at Activision as being that prohibitive evil overlord. That's kind of, as soon as they kind of came in and got in bed with Blizzard, everything kind of all went to hell, right? And they're just money grubbing, insert expletive here. And so it's, but I mean, take it with a grain of salt. It's a PR move to make those kinds of public statements. So maybe yes, maybe no. But I mean, it's interesting to see somebody who's in the know, kind of, I guess, nix that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. In an interview with IGN, Bungie announced plans to release a non-Destiny related franchise by 2025. So, thanks for interrupting me at the last sentence. But yeah,
my apologies.
That's the whole history of Bungie. I have more to talk about, but I think I should move it on to Daniel for just a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, as is usually the case when Jeff likes to cover history of games and history of game developers and kind of stuff like that, and as is usually the case, I look up the kind of the what's coming. I look at the other side of that coin, and the real letdown for me this week was that there is not a lot of news out there for what Bungie is doing in the future, and now I think I know a little bit more about why they play things so close to the chest. But I do have a couple of things. So in 2018, they entered a financial partnership with NetEase, who we kind of know as the creators of Diablo Immortal. In a press release, they stated that it could spark new worlds both in and outside the Destiny franchise. So this was kind of just immediately after they signed that agreement. So I think they were still kind of a little unsure about what was happening. But we might be seeing the fruition of that kind of come to pass, in today's news. So given NetEase's history, it could very well be a mobile game. I kind of know how you feel about mobile games, Jeff. So we'll kind of just. Well, actually, you don't. Maybe I shouldn't say that. You don't hate mobile games per se, but just how they're handling Diablo Immortal, anyways.
Oh yeah, it's just Diablo Immortal. That's the problem.
Yeah. So I mean, and everything else we know about this new franchise or new game comes from internal job postings. That kind of give us a little bit of a clue as to what Bungie's next game is going to be. So kind of important, I think, to qualify it, Bungie in its entirety is only 600 employees. So as far as game developers go, it's not a super big, super, broad scope. And they admitted to it during an interview that the majority of those 600 employees are still on the Destiny project. And I would imagine that most of the other ones that aren't on this project, on the Destiny project, are probably kind of back end, like PR and account maintenance, reception, and those sorts of jobs that every big company needs, but aren't necessarily driving the economic engine, shall we say. In comparison, kind of to compare them to Activision Blizzard, or just Blizzard itself, Blizzard's payroll, I guess, the people that they employ worldwide that actually work for Blizzard, so we're not actually talking third-party anything, they employed in 2018 9,900 people. So it's substantially smaller than Blizzard is.
Well, Blizzard's a pretty huge company.
Factoid. Yep, yeah, it's kind of apples to oranges, but I thought that it would behoove the conversation to kind of give that comparison for myself and yourself that are a lot more familiar with Blizzard than we are with Bungie.
Well, did you know that Nintendo only has like 5,000 employees?
I did not. It's interesting.
Yeah, Blizzard is just gigantic for some reason.
Yeah. So as for what we know about this incoming game, we know that they trademarked in 2018. They trademarked the word matter, M-A-T-T-E-R, matter. So whether that's a new game or just something in the game, we don't really know. Do with that what you will. They very recently, after that, got a $100 million cash infusion from the NetEase company, ostensibly to fund this new project. That would be my guess. Like you mentioned before, it's set to release in 2025. They did announce that it'll be a live service game, so similar to Destiny. And finally, one of their last job postings was looking for a senior environmental artist, listing that the project will be a visually inspiring AAA title. So, I mean, you know, we know not much, but we know a little bit about what might be coming in the future of Bungie Studios. I'm going to toss it back over to you, Jeff, at this point, because that's kind of the end of my my future. Like I said, there wasn't a heck of a lot to glean from the interwebs.
So I also wanted to talk the impact of Bungie. I mean, I played Marathon when I was younger, but I had no idea that it belonged to Bungie. Well, it's probably more accurate to say that since Bungie was more of an unknown back then, I didn't recognize any significance for that connection when I was older and playing Halo. I mean, for the longest time, I would sit and talk to friends about Doom or Wolfenstein, two games that I never ever really played as a kid, but I always had a disconnect by my memory of playing the game involving mouse control. And it wouldn't be until years later, when I was perusing my old collection of computer games, that I'd find Marathon and realize, oh, it's a totally different game. That's sort of the problem of old titles from the 80s and 90s. A lot of them look shockingly similar. So I can at least say that I've played more than one of Bungie's franchises, though the amount of experience in the older title is extremely limited. I mean, heck, I only remember the gameplay itself, nothing in particular like story or level layouts. It was a pick-up-and-forget game for me, more than a impact-my-whole-life kind of game. I mean, come on, it wasn't King's Quest.
Yeah, King's Quest. I never did finish that game.
No kidding.
It's just so god-awful.
Whoa!
At least the one that I downloaded wasn't the one with the nostalgia factor. Anyways, it was a different.
Yeah, it was the very first one, right?
13 or whatever King's Quests, and it wasn't the one that I had played as a kid. So
right,
it was ugly and it had no nostalgia to keep me there. So,
but that aside, Halo was certainly the juggernaut of mine and your life, Daniel.
Absolutely.
And I want to talk less about the game itself and more about its impact on my life. I mean, we'll eventually have the Halo episode, so I want to instead focus on what Halo, or Bungie by extension, has done for me, how it's affected me. I would describe my situation as a mostly unique one, as I received an Xbox before anyone else in town. I got it on a Friday, I remember it vividly. It was during classes, and I was allowed to skip out so I could do the floor drill for Air Cadets for a Remembrance Day event. We lined up in gym and honored the veterans and did a ticket raffle, and my mom won the first prize, which was, of course, the Xbox console with both Halo and 1080 snowboarding. I danced and broke protocol, and we were all dismissed. Everyone challenged me to a Slayer match afterward.
Wait. You were all dismissed because you danced and broke protocol?
No. I just accelerated events.
You're fired.
Yeah. But afterward, everyone challenged me to a Slayer match. I had no idea what they were talking about. I had earned pure adulation from everyone around me, even the cool high schoolers, because of a game I knew nothing about. I was a Nintendo baby. I didn't have a clue what Halo was, what the Xbox was, what I was getting myself into. So, I went home with my mom as classes had ended, and I just had a flashback of her, face bombing when the veteran pulled her name from the raffle. Oh my gosh. The last thing she'd want is to have another video game console in the house. So I went downstairs to our old box TV. This TV was the old kind that like a big rectangular cube with wooden siding. I plugged my Xbox in and put in Halo. The vivid memories of even that weird green transforming goop in the center of some sort of power core, and it zooms out to the Xbox logo. It's a weird animation, it makes no sense for the Xbox logo, but it will stay with me until the day I die. And I mean, the intense Halo menu screen, solemn chorus, leading into like intense string instruments and battle music while the camera wound around the Halo itself. The choice of 4 different difficulties. I mean, emerging from my coffin as Count Dracula in space. No, wait, wrong game. It was just an amazing experience from start to finish, and I would spend the bulk of my time, at least in Halo 1, alone. I would go in multiplayer maps by myself and figure out how to precisely grenade jump, how to use the physics of the game engine to my advantage so that when that eventual multiplayer moment came, I'd have all the advantages. My friends would visit every night that my parents would tolerate, and we would play well into the night at every chance we had. It taught me how to accept losing. I was sort of an uncultured brat growing up. I mean, I hated playing games that I knew I was bad at because I just didn't want to face loss. Mm-hmm. I spent countless hours playing legendary difficulty and dying hundreds of times per checkpoint. And when that fateful day arrived that I got to play multiplayer against some friends, I got crushed. I was so used to playing nobody or AI that all my established strategy was moot. I had to rebuild from the ground up and reestablish any skill that I dreamed of having. I went from playing cooperatively with friends that visited to playing competitively to hone any skills I still needed to hone. It taught me how some people were just shallow, that they just wanted to come to play Halo. They didn't care about being friends. It made me want to be the best so I could beat these leeches every time they came over, and pretty soon they stopped coming over. I mean, it sounds like a poor way of dealing with jerks, but I wasn't a confrontational kid. If I could beat them relentlessly in a video game to stop them from coming over, I'd still be having fun and they'd stop pestering me. So, win-win.
I'm trying to remember if I was one of the ones that you would beat mercilessly and relentlessly. Was I one of those kids?
I think so, because I remember playing against you and Braden at the same time and winning. It let me, us, play games at the massively multiplayer level. 16 teenagers in a house yelling at each other through the walls and ceilings. I'm so glad we had a friend, Travis, whose house we could do that at, because those experiences really taught me how being the best in my own little world meant nothing. I could snipe friends one-on-one from across the map, using only the first level of zoom on the sniper rifle, or shoot a rocket into those narrow caves along the side of Blood Gulch. But when I sat down opposite 15 other people in the same match, my lack of awareness became startlingly clear. Every time I lined up a shot for an awesome kill, someone would grenade me or clunk me from behind. I remember going back to your place after hours of dying and feeling so incredibly frustrated. I mean, it made me want to be the best. It wasn't a throw in the towel moment. It was I need to get much better moment, because I'm a competitive guy. I don't like losing, but I get the message when I do. Dying in a legendary difficulty and going back to the checkpoint is better than dying and going back to the menu screen, which older titles did to you. There was just enough punishment and just enough mercy to keep me in the game, to keep me wanting to play, to keep me getting better. I mean, it's been years now. If I sat back down to play Halo, I'm pretty sure much of my skill would remain, but there'd be no chance I'd play on anything better than Legendary. Because I'm just stuck to that mode. I might not remember the players or the levels completely, but there's no chance I won't go online in Halo 3 or 4 and have my face pummeled repeatedly.
It's true. I over the years, every now and then I'll go back to, Halo 3 or Halo 4 or whichever one I pick up is the flavor of the day, and it's usually when I have somebody over that remembers it, and I'll be like, I still have it. Let's kind of cue this thing up, and they proceed to mop the floor with me as well. And I thought I was doing pretty darn good because I played quite a bit of the online side of it. I thought that I was pretty good, but maybe the skills don't last, and I just rusty as all get out and just get destroyed.
Yeah, I played Halo 4 online considerably because at the time Braden was really into it as well. So we got into the habit of playing that a lot, and I really enjoyed it. I would say my win lose ratio was probably around 50%, but it was enough for me. But yeah, I have honestly the losses and the wins combined. I have nothing but positive experience with the multiplayer.
Yeah.
Bungie also learned from its games successively. I mean, from the revolutionary camera controls in Marathon to more story-focused gameplay starting in Pathways into Darkness, you know that they learned, especially when pitted against other gaming giants that I'm loyal to, like Blizzard. Blizzard isn't afraid of trying new things, but that doesn't mean necessarily that they learned from their previous games. When StarCraft 2 released with so many differences from StarCraft 1, that it was hailed for the better part of its release year as the StarCraft killer. The sequel to StarCraft 1 was the StarCraft killer. I got that feeling that Blizzard wasn't trying to get better. They were just trying to be new. When they introduced something like Artifact Weapons and Legion, a system that, though grindy, was pretty well accepted by all, and then moved on to a worse system, you can guess pretty quickly that they wanted to keep appearing new rather than better. At least in Bungie, I can rely on that sense that they always want to push better. And my only real disappointment is that Halo is no longer theirs to develop. I mean, whether they would continue to develop Halo is up for discussion, but assuming they would have, it would have been just a grand old time.
Yeah. Yeah, I too would like to live in a world where Bungie still had the rights to develop Halo. However, if they were going to just drop it and not continue the franchise anymore, I am glad that 343 Industries, I don't know if did they part ways? Did they branch off, or did they just sell to another company? Because 343 is obviously it's a reference to the Guilty Spark installation, right? So
yeah, it was a studio created by Microsoft.
Okay.
And they have done well. Like Halo 4 got like I think its average rating is about 84%, or 84 out of 100. Same with Halo 5, and they made some other extension game or side story games that have also done pretty well as well. So I've only played Halo 4 from 343 Industries, but it is really good.
It is good.
I would say it's because it's it's venturing into new story apart, separate from the original Halo trilogy. It sort of took some risks, and some of them paid off, some of them not so much. But I would say for the better part, it's really good.
So to round this episode off, I figured that we would kind of throw in some what I consider to be very interesting, partially funny, maybe we'll see, trivia to do with the Bungie Studios. So Jeff,
you sound
did
confident.
You know? Because this one's funny. I like this one. Did you know that Halo was originally codenamed Monkey Nuts?
No, I did not.
Yes, it's true. However, it didn't last that long as its internal code name, because one of the developers didn't want to call home and tell his mom that he was working on Monkey Nuts. So Jason Jones changed it to Blam, with an exclamation mark at the end of Blam.
But how is the nuts spelled in Monkey Nuts?
With a Z.
Oh, even better.
Yeah. So I find that pretty hilarious. Didn't want to call home and tell his mom that he's working on Monkey Nuts. Project Monkey Nuts. So and so second point, Blam, is a reference to a word that they would commonly shout out in the Chicago office, which is its own inside joke. They were stationed in kind of a busy part of town. That's kind of where their office was, and
the
they
crack
would.
House?
No, that was west or east. Was it west? West. That was Bungie West.
No.
Isn't Chicago a little eastern than west?
No, that was their main office.
Oh. Well, maybe it was right outside the crack house. Who knows? But they would commonly shout the word "blam" across the office, and the inside joke there was that, of course, they lived in the busy part, or not they lived, but they worked in a busy part of town, and there were frequent near collisions outside. So everyone would hear this extremely loud kind of screeching of tires as the drivers would brake and swerve and try and dodge the other driver, and then just dead silence as all the cars come to a stop. And so this person named Rob McLeese, I'm not sure who that is, but he would, assumedly was one of their employees, he would just shout "blam" to lend a little bit of comedic relief and to give the event, the Screeching Tires event, some sort of finality or closure. And so I don't know why that became their inside joke, or why specifically it became the Halo. But yeah, there you go. So Halo had two code names, Monkey Nuts and Blam.
Wow.
Destiny cost about $500 million to develop. How long do you think it took them to make that back?
A month.
1 day.
Oh.
They made their $500 million on launch day.
Wow.
That's pretty interesting. Bungie.
I remember it being advertised out the wazoo, though. Oof.
It was. It's true, and it's been a pretty solid game franchise since. So rightly so. In the contracts that Bungie had with Activision for its Destiny titles, there was a clause in there saying that Bungie had to disclose all of the Easter eggs that they write into their game to Activision.
Ooh, that sucks.
Had to give them all. I assume now this is just my kind of interpretation of this, but I assume that this is because they didn't want any kind of Winnie the Pooh kind of references where they're making fun of another political figure, and that could reflect badly on Activision. So they wanted to make sure that nothing untoward could happen. So yeah. They also have this one kind of what's referred internally as the Secret Seven, or maybe it's not referred to as the Secret Seven internally, but Bungie has this weird crush on the number 7, and I'm not sure what else to call it. The number 7 is kind of like the number 23 from that movie 23 with what's his name?
Jackie Chan.
Jim Carrey, where the number once you see it, the number 23 just keeps popping up all the time. Well, in Bungie, that number is 7, and it is everywhere. I read kind of this enormous list on Bungie.fandom.com. Just some of them I listed here, but this is like one drop in a very large bucket of the number 7 recurring. So of course we have Spartan 117 in the Halo franchise. We have 343, which is the number 7 cubed. So 7 times 7 times 7 is 343. The Halo logo is a gear with 7 cogs on it. And in the Marathon series, the Marathon colony ship was a hollowed out moon named Deimos, I believe, which was first, and this is a real moon, was first discovered in 1877 and was first photographed in 1977. So that number 7, like I said, just keeps coming back. It's like a bad case of a venereal disease. It just keeps coming back.
Wow. Those listening at home will have to forgive me because I just played some advertisement accidentally. Over the venereal disease part.
Yes, it was all planned. Did you know in Destiny you can shoot yourself in the foot?
Ah, nice.
I wasn't. I having never played Destiny, we might have to kind of rely on. Have you ever played Destiny?
No.
So
I've watched our mutual friends play it, but that's it.
So my assumption then, if this is in the trivia that you can shoot yourself in the foot, my assumption then is that you look down and either your feet aren't there, or if you fire, it just kind of fires into the concrete below your feet. But here's the thing: it has to be a very specific set of circumstances for you to be able to shoot yourself in the foot. You need to find a body of water and stand in it about knee deep, and then your foot becomes targetable. And you can shoot it, and you can actually shoot yourself to death through the foot.
Damn.
Yeah, sounds kind of funny. Destiny was originally called Project Tiger internally, and was supposed to be a straight-up fantasy game with armored knights and, horses and all that kind of stuff.
Well, they sort of departed from that.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. And then my last one was the bit about the studio only employing 600 people and comparing it to Activision Blizzard's 9,900 people. But I talked about that already. So
you should have compared it to Sony.
Oh, what's Sony?
I think Sony has like 100,000 employees.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Holy smokes!
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode. It was a great time. Of course, we love Bungie so much. And, of course, we're going to talk about Halo in the future. That easily deserves its own episode. But in regards to episodes, next week's episode is going to be... What makes a good story? Oh, I was doing comedic effect. No, what did you say? Dramatic effect?
Pause for Pause for dramatic effect.
That's right.
Well, you achieved the comedic effect, shall we say, as I'm wiping tears from my eyes.
Dang it. Yeah. So look forward to that. We're just going to talk about story and games. What makes a good story? What makes a bad story? Is it interactivity, etc., etc. And yeah, I think that's about it. You can contact us at Daniel.
As always, you can email us. Was that comedic effect or dramatic effect?
I couldn't remember the things.
As always, you can email us at tldrpodcast@gmail.com if you have a question, comment, or if you want to suggest a topic for a future show. We'd love to hear from you. Or you can tweet at us at podcasttldr. Remember, that's podcast without the T. And you can find all of our content on youtube.com/TLDR podcast.
Thank you, Daniel, for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. We'll see you later.
Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to restart.
We are off to a great start. I love it. You got to sprinkle a few of those in there just so that we have something to play at the end, right?
Of course.
All for the lulz. Well, that's the end of my trivia list. It was a little trivial.
The end. Thank you for watching, listening, smelling.
Ooh, back to the ASMR. We're bringing it all together.
I was tempted to make an ASMR noise, and the only noise I could think of was sps, 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 sps. And that's nothing. I don't know what that is.
That's a sprinkler,
I wonder if that's an ASMR thing.
Just close this thing off. We got to get the hell out of here.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to today's show. Next week, we'll be doing...
What makes a good story?
Let's do that all over again. Holy smokes. I couldn't remember. I'm like, Daniel will pick this up for me.
I thought you were pausing for dramatic effect all over again.
Oh, okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this show, this episode. I'm just gonna bury my head in the snow.